do. And what I like to do is to introduce everyone so that we all know who is here. And since we didn't have much time to kind of prepare earlier, I'm just wondering who's got something to demonstrate as a reduction principle, like an example of reductionism. Yeah? Monica? Maybe? Dan? No one. All right. So, well, in that case, let me just share the what I have here. Here we go. All right. Welcome, everyone, to our monthly meeting of ukulele instructors everywhere in the world. My name is Ann Koo, and we try to have a topic each time, and we always try to have the meeting somewhere around middle of the month, and it's free for everyone to join us. It's really about teaching ukulele or teaching music through the ukulele and all that. So today's topic is on simplification and reduction. How do we deconstruct something for our students, either in terms of how to play chords, how to do the right hand, or how to simplify the music altogether. And sometimes I think it's easier to simplify somebody else's work rather than your own work, because you might think it's obvious, it's easy. So what I've been doing is to invite different composers, arrangers, transcribers to send me their music so I could look at it and then deconstruct it for my teaching. And so this is today, and I just talk about what we're going to do is talk about how do we simplify a piece and give some examples. And yeah, sometimes we have to do extra more than what's written there. So let me stop share, and let's introduce each other. So we started this in August with monthly meetings, and I'm really glad to think there's only two of you that have actually met in person, and that's just over a year ago. I met Paul, and my goodness, 1.5, or is it 2 years ago, I met Monica so I met Paul Mansell in London in March, and then Monica in mid-July in Austin, Texas in 2019. It sounds like a long time ago. So, and then we have a few newcomers I haven't met, Jean and Greta, and then we also have some non-video participants. So, why don't we just start with, let's go from west to east. I think the person who is most west is Dan. Dan, how about if you tell us a little bit about what you're doing? I know you have some kind of big event coming up in May, don't you?
I do. I have flyers to show everyone in a minute. So I'm based in Melbourne in Victoria. If you see me dozing off a little bit, I got home at 1 o'clock this morning. It's 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock in the morning right here. It was the Melbourne Ukulele Festival that was not a festival just last night. So it just sort of grew. They decided, look, it's still too early to hold a festival, but we'll have a small concert. It'll just save the date sort of thing. And then another group said, oh, well, if you're doing that at 7, we'll do this at 4. And another organisation said, oh, we'll do this at 2 in the afternoon. So, and it just kept building and building. So my day yesterday started at 5 o'clock in the morning and finished at 1. And here I am, and I love you, and that's why I'm here. 3 hours sleep, so it was really nice, because actually the Melbourne Ukulele Festival, this time exactly last year, was the very last festival standing. Ta-da! Everything shut down after that. So there was a lot of love in the room. It was really nice. I'm a primary school music teacher, and I just realised over 10 years ago, discovered that I don't need to use the recorder in the classroom. Wow. The ukulele is a much better instrument anyway. I've just recently had to buy a second class set of ukuleles because it's all very well doing a lesson, but then when it's time to perform, there's only enough ukuleles for 30 kids, and I've got 60 ready to go. So I've just doubled my inventory earlier this month because the ukulele is cool at my school. But yes, the festival that I actually run is called the Hills Ukulele Festival, and indeed that's coming up on the 15th and 16th of May. It's going to be a combination of, still online, a combination of Zoom workshops on the Saturday and live stream Facebook for concerts and strum-alongs, and on the Sunday I'm inviting everyone and anyone who has a ukulele, who is a soloist or is a leader of a group, to send me a video of a song, and we will be live streaming that film clip on Sunday the 16th of May, which is whatever day it is on your side of the planet. We'll work that out. So if anyone is thinking, I'd love the opportunity for my group to strut their stuff, please let me know. I've got a couple of things. I've got people from Hawaii and Canada and not London, but just north of London. I can't remember where, I'm sorry, sending stuff in so far. So the more international, the better. The world has become a very small place, as it turns out. That's the one silver lining of 2020. I've met all you lovely people.
Thank you, Dan. Would you type all that information in the chat? And what I'll do is I'll copy and paste into my Google slide, then I could show it later on the video. So
I was going to actually drop a thing of the actual flyer.
That's
with all the
even better.
everything on it.
Yeah, that's even better than we could share that screen. All right, great. Thank you, Dan. So Dan was there at the very beginning in August when I made a call out to say it's so lonely here teaching ukulele in Zoom. Anybody else doing the same? And let's just meet each other. And that's when my world got slightly bigger. So now we're going to go backwards. We're going to go east. So Dan is in Australia. And who is east of Australia? All right, we're skipping Hawaii. I don't see Rick today. All right, we're going to skip Hawaii and go to California.
San Francisco.
Oh, wait a minute. Oh, yeah.
I think I'm west of Ukiah, aren't I? I don't know California very well.
Okay, Mark. All right. You're going to compete.
Wait,
right?
Ukiah's on the north coast, is that right?
Ukiah's in Mendocino County. Yeah, it's 100 miles north of the Golden Gate Bridge.
You're probably west of me, then.
Yeah.
If you're not inland, I'll go after you.
Oh, okay. So it's funny. I realized that you and I do have a song to share that's a deconstruct. If get to that point, a very simple one. It's a little Jesse Winchester tune. But anyway, I'm Sheridan Malone. I live in Ukiah, California. And I've been coming to this group now for a while and coming to Anne's 3-chord Thursdays and sharing and arranging some tunes for her too. So that's been fun. But that's, this is, I actually am fortunate enough to not only have got my second COVID shot, but I've actually been playing out live because there are some places that have set up some safe constructs for for dining and getting entertained, and so that's been a blessing during the pandemic, and so I feel fortunate for that, to be able to kind of keep myself active musically. I'm teaching at some adult music camps online as well, so that's one other thing.
Well, stop bragging, Sheridan. I am so jealous. Oh, I'm so jealous. And Sheridan, you've certainly inspired the participants of Three Chord Thursday. This is this weekly song session I run, which started at the beginning of the pandemic when I was forced into Zoom at the beginning of April. And we're about to celebrate our first anniversary, and we're going to be having a ukulele Jeopardy game. So I'm trying to think of questions to ask, because there are prizes. If you want to donate a prize, like a song, like a sheet music arrangement, hint, hint, Paul, because so far it's like harmonica lessons or caricatures of the winning team, voice lesson, and anything that doesn't require a physical movement. But Sheridan's arrangements have certainly made us think twice about the way we look at songs. Not just strumming, but you could do all sorts of interesting plucking. So thank you, Sheridan. All right, so I guess Mark.
Hi, I'm Mark Siegelman. I'm from San Francisco. And I am not, I don't think of myself as an ukulele instructor. I don't have classes online or otherwise. But I lead the San Francisco Ukulele Rebellion, which is a jam group in San Francisco that used to meet twice a month in person. And in terms of teaching, I would look for teachable moments. Occasionally I would find a song where it was an opportunity to teach something like changing chords in a syncopated way rather than on the first beat or the third beat of a measure. Or a particular kind of strum. I also I've led a couple of workshops on Hawaiian strumming. And I try to be available as somebody who has more knowledge than some people, but way less knowledge than most. And I'm interested in this group because it implicates a lot of the things I do, even though I don't teach. For example, one of the concerns I have as the head of the San Francisco Ukulele Rebellion Zoom meetings, which we're celebrating our anniversary in a couple of weeks, is some people come in with really complicated chord sheets, and that frustrates some people. So there's a whole thing about trying to make the group interesting enough for people who are beyond three chords, but making it accessible to people who aren't. And so it creates an interesting tension. So this is an interesting topic for me.
This is so interesting because now that we're doing everything online, it means that everything has to be so much more, usable. Yeah, usability issue, so much more readable. We have people who have impaired vision, and all sorts of disabilities which you can't see. But if a song sheet is just slightly blurred or a little bit too small, then it affects them because we don't know what kind of devices they're using. So we talk about this a lot, and I notice for people who are learning, this whole readability issue is so critical. Like even say a 16 measure piece, okay? If you don't structure it so it's like 4 bars per line, and you do it differently, they might hone in on, well, why is this measure longer than others? And for me, it's like, well, it's just typesetting. It's not a big deal. But for them, it's everything, right? It will throw them off. So thank you for that.
I just wanted to say one of the interesting things about Zoom is that when you're in a group, you obviously can hear everybody else. If you're new in a group and a song comes along with a lot of chords or a lot of chord changes, you can just tell the person, pick a chord a couple of measures out and wait for that chord and then play it. And they can hear other people. When you're sitting at home by yourself and the only person you can hear is the person leading the song, it becomes incredibly frustrating to do anything that resembles that. And so I think it's a lot harder for somebody who's relatively new to play along with a group when the group is on Zoom than when, you can hear everybody else.
That is true.
That's a good point.
And if the person who's performing or leading doesn't count in and just starts right away, it doesn't mean that you could just jump in and follow, right? Yeah, thank you, Mark. All right, so we're having a contest. I know, Monica, you're in Canada, but I don't know where Jean and Greta are. So who is a bit east of California?
Well, I'm in the Lake Arrowhead area, which is Southern California.
Oh,
And so I'm down by the San Bernardino Riverside area, which we call the Inland Empire. I've been playing ukulele for about 3.5 years. I play other instruments, but I picked it up when I retired because I wanted to make sure dementia didn't sit in. So I have really fallen in love with the ukulele. As a result, I am involved in 4 ukulele groups. I lead one in my mountain community here, and I started a evening group called the Inland Empire Ukulele Society, which I have about 150 people involved in it now. And we do once a month Facebook feeds. We don't do Zoom. I do the Facebook because it gives people an opportunity to go back and watch the recordings and practice the songs and techniques that we share there. But we're hoping to go live next month. Things are looking good for us. Some of the senior centers are opening up, so we're excited about that. But again, the challenge is trying to make some of these songs as easy for some folks. I do it 3 levels for our groups. I do it at the beginner, the intermediate, and advanced, and I label the songs accordingly. So that way I give a little bit of flavor for everybody to kind of, tune up their skills. But I joined your group about, I think when it first started, but this is only the first time I got a chance to actually get online and join you. But I appreciated this and seeing some of the chartings, and I look forward to seeing some more things happen with this group.
oh, thank you very much, Jean. Thank you for finally showing up. When you say live, what does that mean? You mean like face to face in the same physical space? That's what you mean by live?
Yes, we'll be able to distance safely because most of the folks have their vaccines. In fact, tomorrow evening, no, next Wednesday, I'll be doing a live Facebook feed at our bowl. We have a nice Redlands bowl here, and there's plenty of seating for people to sit there in the bowl to play along with me. So we're going to be doing that, hopefully the weather permitting.
Oh, fantastic. Congratulations. Jean, you mentioned beginning, intermediate, and advanced. And this is one of the topics that's kind of ongoing. Lindsay Higgs unfortunately can't be here today. But we were talking earlier, several months ago, about the different graded systems in the UK. Paul, you're instrumental in that. And for me personally, I would love to create diagnostics so I could tell people, you're ready for this class if you could do this. Yeah. Like, what does beginning, intermediate, advanced mean? Because it's not just how well you read, how fast you play. Sometimes it's something else too, whether you could do mental gymnastics of transposing in your head or something. But maybe that could be another topic too.
Because it includes strum styles too. How you strum a song can be a challenge for a lot of people.
Exactly.
It's just like I always tell my folks the easiest song I like to share with them is my C7 song, Put the Lime in the Coconut. So it goes really well with that.
Right. So I think for us teachers, it's also about, how do you make something as simple as a 1-chord Lime in a Coconut song challenging for advanced players, right? And also the reverse, take a 10-chord song and make it super easy for beginners. How do you make them fearless? All right, thank you, Jean. So I'm wondering who is more east of Jean? Is it Greta or is it Monica?
I don't think it's me because I'm in Europe.
Okay, all right, you might be last. Or one of the last. Okay, I guess it's Monica then.
It's probably me. I'm north of Montana, so I'm just, a little bit east. I live in Edmonton, Alberta, Canada, and yeah, it's very lovely here. It could be not lovely, but it has been very lovely lately. So that's a bit of a relief in this COVID time where everybody's got the clouds still hanging over them. It's helped our spirits a lot. Um, I teach in school. I teach at 2 elementary schools currently, and I've been teaching ukulele in schools since 1983. And so teaching classes of children is really where most of my experience has been. And because of that, the next level of my experience has been sharing that with teachers. So kind of my best thing is teaching teachers how to teach classes of students. So that's really my passion too, is to just be able to give what I have learned and developed, and my pedagogy and my order of teaching things. That's been a really fruitful thing for me, and I think for the teachers of classes, because it's a different beast teaching children and in a class setting versus teaching anybody privately or teaching adults. I can't do lime in the coconut because grade 4s, they're just the parents, I'll get a call. So yeah, I also have an adult gang, an ukulele gang in my town, and we're of course not meeting now. We've been meeting a little bit virtually, but not regularly. So I'm really looking forward to the community that we have in person. So I have one group that I'm teaching a bit online, but it's not very. It doesn't feel great to me just because I hear me, I can't hear them, and I'm boring to me. But we are learning and they are enjoying it. So that's good. But as a teacher, I can't wait to be in community because, of course, that is part of what all this is, making music together, singing together, playing together. I also have 2 levels of groups. I have a beginning group for adults who don't know anything or know a bit. And then I always invite them to stay into the more advanced group. And when, if they want to do both, that's great, so that they kind of creep into that next group if they're comfortable. So I don't have firm, levels, but I have a beginner group. And when the adults feel comfortable, then, they swing into the more advanced group as they, at their speed, because some people learn quickly and others don't. But I want to encourage everybody. So, Mark, what you were saying about play the chord when you see it. That's one of the best things. That's how I learned how to play guitar around the campfire. It's like, oh, I know that one. I don't know. No. That's one of the best ways to learn a new chord. And I love to do that with the ukulele as well. So yeah, a little bit about me. Enough about me. And I did get my first shot the other day. So I'm very relieved too. It feels very good. That feels great.
Oh, thank you, Monica. Good to have you back. We missed you last week. All right. So Monica and I met at Kevin Carroll's ukulele teaching summit, right? Teacher summit. And there were 15 of us physically sitting in this. There were 15 because he couldn't fit any more people. So that was fun to meet each other. All right. So I think it's Peter and Susan. Sue, I'm glad you brought Peter.
Yes, well, he's here. He should be
here.
He should be cooking me supper, but we're in the meeting now.
Yeah, I don't instruct anybody. I make songs more complicated. That's my.
So Peter and Sue, whenever they're together, they do a duo in my 3-chord Thursdays, and it always sounds so beautiful. We're also jealous you could, play music together. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, there's not a lot of gigs anymore, but we've done I don't know,
a few.
half
We've done
dozen Zoom ones.
We've done some Zoom ones to different senior centers and different groups.
Yeah. Yeah, so a little background about me. I started in February of 2018 teaching at Senior Center, and it kind of evolved from that. I'm not a ukulele player from way back at all. I actually took up the violin at age 50, but I played guitar when I was 12 or 13, and it just never leaves you. You just remember the chord shapes. And so I try to stay a little ahead of the students, but luckily I'm a quick learner, so I can stay ahead. So we've been on Zoom. I've been teaching on Zoom since last April, so it's been a year. And I just like Jean said, I got notification that in May they're going to socially distance and try it in person. So I'm not sure how it's going to work. I'm not real confident about the singing component of it. But then I thought, well, gee, maybe we'll take some simple songs and half the class will pick the melody. Or I can bring in my phone with a little Bose speaker and I can record it ahead of time and we can play it. So there's workarounds. Everybody's asking me, what are we going to do? And I said, well, we'll make it work. So yeah, and then definitely I have different levels. And lately I've been doing a song. Like last week in my class, we did Shine On Harvest Moon. And it's amazing how many chords you can eliminate. Doesn't sound great, but I did that and then I rewrote it and put extra chords in red and said to them, now any of these extra chords, if you can play them, fine. If not, just stay on that E minor, as long as you can. So
Wow, so it definitely seems like we're at the next stage, isn't it? When the lockdown is opening up, it's another big frontier, how comfortable we are, especially if we're doing singing. I'm just wondering, can you hear each other if you're safely distanced? I mean,
that's what I'm worried. Will I need them? Will they set up a microphone?
Yeah.
And it's not in our small conference room with the giant TV that we used to be in. They're going to have to print out. Can I touch their papers? Yeah, I'm going to ask them to reprint everything ahead of time if they need it printed. It's going to be different.
Yeah, I tried jamming with my friends when I was in England last October. We were inside, but we were, at least 6 feet apart or farther, and it just wasn't the same. You don't get the same vibe. You don't get the same, Jean, you were about to say something?
Yeah, unfortunately, some of the senior sitters are going to have different rules. Like one I am involved with says there's no paper whatsoever. So everybody's going to have to bring in an electronic device to be able to look at the music online. So you're going to have to see what each senior center is looking at. One senior center is only those who can show proof of vaccination is going to be able to participate. So it's going to be up to how the rules are for your area and what's going to be playing out, because everybody's still trying to be. But again, for me, when I do it at the bowl, I'll be amplified where everybody can hear me, but I'll be listening to them, and the amplification there at this bowl is great. So I'll be able to hear them play too.
Sorry, what is wrong with paper?
You have to touch it.
Yeah.
Wow.
But if you have an iPad and there's an app called OnSong, which allows you to key change, allows you to do you can even you can project on Zoom, you can project on a projector, you can do a whole bunch of things and make the song scroll to the length of the song if you're leading, so there's it's an expensive app, but I use it all the time and I find it enormously valuable, and I can share songs with people really easily using it.
All right, well.
I think can you hear me?
Yes.
Sorry.
Monica.
I think if people bring in, for some restrictions, if people bring their own paper, it's okay. You just, I don't know, they'll be different everywhere, but you can't hand out paper, but they could likely bring in their own, just like they're bringing in their own instrument. That's a hope anyway.
Yeah, that makes sense. Thank you, Monica. All right, so we're now, let's cross over the Atlantic Ocean. I'm just curious, Greta, where are you exactly in Europe?
I'm in Ireland.
Ah, you're next. Happy belated St. Patrick's Day.
Thank you very much. I'm playing ukulele for a while. I don't have groups at the moment. So I'm really working through the internet for a lot of my ukulele inspiration and motivation and commitment. I'm doing the James Hill teacher course, so I have level 1 done. I'm on level 2 at the moment. So I was looking for different things just to, give me interest. So I came across your 3-chord Thursday group, and through that came across this. So I've been enjoying both of them, hit and miss, for a while. I am a primary school teacher as well, and I also would have taught music privately for quite a long time, piano, keyboard and whistle guitar. So yeah, we were just getting to the stage in school where they were setting up after school clubs, and that would have been one, and then the country was shut down. So we were actually only back at school since last Monday. It was our first time back in school since before Christmas. So getting used to all the COVID restrictions again. So thank you very much for providing this. I really enjoy it.
Thank you, Greta. Finally, welcome from the Emerald Isle. Now let's move on across the Irish Sea to where Paul is. Paul Mansell.
Hello. Well, it's lovely to see everybody and meet everybody. My name's Paul. I'm from Northampton in England, which is about an hour north of London. I'm an author, performer and teacher. I've written 4 books, and the thing that interests me when Anne spoke about this was, for me, the ukulele is perhaps the most inclusive instrument you can get. And I think talking about breaking things down so that everybody can play a piece is very, very interesting. I do quite a few group sessions at festivals and things. And when you do a group session, you have a very mixed ability. You'll have some people who, can play a C chord, and you'll have some people who are really advanced. And for me, a lot of it is about picking a piece where there's enough meat on the bone for everybody. The books that I've written, I'm not going to do a sales pitch, but one thing that is interesting, Ukulele School, the book that I wrote, is specifically for children, young children. And the way the book works is it's 10 songs on an easy and a difficult level. So exactly what we're talking about, where I think it was Jean that was talking about a C7 song. And yeah, it's interesting that you can take a song with just one chord in it and hopefully have children that may only be able to play that chord on a basic level play it, and then at the same time have people who are more advanced, perhaps like Mark was talking about, doing a Hawaiian strum or something over it. And I think that's a really interesting area. The ukulele is perfect, as we know, for teaching people who maybe come to it later in life as well, because you can do it in a very basic way, but at the same time there's so much more to it, and that's why I think it's the perfect instrument for getting kids started in schools.
Yeah, thank you, Paul. And you also have a show, a ukulele show, don't you, where you interview performers?
Yeah, so I run a show called the Ukulele Sessions. Well, I'd like to say it goes out weekly, but it's a bit hit and miss at the moment with things. But so I get all the really, really great players on. We've had Sam Muir, Colin Tribe, Tony Mizen, Kimo Hussey, people like that come on. And sometimes I'll interview them about their techniques. Sometimes they'll just come on and play. And the interesting thing about it has been that I think was where I operating in a different sort of, say I was doing this with guitar or piano, I think a lot of the people that I would have approached might have said, no, I'm not doing that. But with the ukulele, it seems that you approach anyone, and within this community, they're happy to help. And there's people, let's just take Kimo Hussey, he's one of the best players in the world. I dropped him an email and he said, yeah, well, I'll come on your show. And to me, that's what makes the ukulele so brilliant, that, it's like this, isn't it? People are willing to share in that.
Yes, that's right. And I remember I invited Paul to come to one of the last sessions of my fingerstyle ukulele course. And they played, I think, a piece for you. And then you just gave a simple sort of short demo, and it was just so much insight, so much insight. And I think this is a time where you can invite people. And just so if you don't brag about yourself, can I brag about you? All right. Okay. Let's see. All right. Did everybody introduce themselves? All right. So this is Paul Mansell's book, which I bought last year when I met him. And it's meant for duets to ukulele. So I just want to kick off our topic today about reduction and simplification. I was so excited to get this, and I bought a bunch hoping I could distribute to my students and do it face-to-face in a workshop. But unfortunately, the lockdown prevented that. And then, of course, we couldn't do duets online. So I took the first piece, which was Allegretto, which is a duet. And on Paul, because you suggested it, you said you could actually play this as a solo. So in my chord melody class, I gave it out and asked them to just look at both the first, the primo and the secondo, and make it into a solo. Yeah. And they were able to do that. So I don't know what you call that. Is it reductionism, or is it the other way around, to take a duet and make it a solo?
Like the opposite, isn't it?
It's the opposite. Yeah. And what I started with, and maybe I should show it. Do you mind if I share that so I could show
Of course, it's absolutely fine. If people want a copy of it, I'll happily send them a free copy of that piece that they might be interested in. People want a PDF of it.
Okay, so it's the very first piece, and let me just share it on the screen here. It's the very first piece in your book. So here it is. I just kind of took a picture of it, scanned it. If you look at the second part, I mean, most people, they look at the first part immediately, thinking that, oh, that's the easy bit. But actually, it's ukulele 2 that's easier. And if they're not used to looking at tab, I tell them, it's a chord diagram. Draw the chord diagram there. What's the first chord? And already they know to refer to chords using the 4-digit, the 4 frets. 2010. Oh, that's an F. Okay, draw it. Okay, what's the second one? Don't know what that is. Well, there's a 2 missing, right? Oh, it's a G. Yes, that's right. It's a G, 0, 2, 3, 2. And the third one, they don't know what that is. So, well, it's a C. So then they draw it, and they're much faster reading from a chord diagram than reading tabs. So I go through ukulele 2 part together. Yeah. And then they feel more confident. So the whole point is, I tell them about sight reading, is you look at the whole piece and try to analyze it. Yeah. Before you even start. And then you try to figure out what is the hardest bit, what's the easiest bit, what's repeating, what's repetitive. Try to look for patterns. So now that they've played the second ukulele part, they feel a lot more confident. I said, okay, now let's look at the first part. So the first part, right away, this rest at the very beginning is very daunting. Yeah, because nobody likes to start a song with a rest. Let me just spotlight that, like right here, this rest. So I tell them the way to do it is to just go, So, da da da, da da da, da da. Just do it. Do the Yeah. So they analyze what it is, and then they realize, oh, it's not really that hard anymore. So they have a lot more confidence. Yeah. And then we do discuss a little bit about these chords. These last 2 lines, they're actually, the ukulele 1 is playing the simple C chord. Yeah, the simple G chord, the C chord, which we all know. And the ukulele 2 is playing the barred C chord, the barred G chord, and all that. So then, armed with this knowledge, I go back and say, well, since we cannot do duets together, how would you combine them? And then the answer becomes very obvious because they know both parts already. They say, well, we'll play the chord and then we'll do the melody. We'll play the chord, we'll do the melody. I said, yes, fantastic. What about when it comes to the end? Which would you do? Which line of chords would you do? And then some people say, well, this is much easier. I'll do the first one because it's the same thing, really. I said, yeah. And if you want to challenge yourself, you could do this. So one student actually performed it and recorded it. And I was very pleased that they managed to deconstruct and put it together. So there you go.
I think what you've done there is clever, actually. You've almost reverse engineered it because, interestingly, the piece Allegretto was actually written as a solo piece for guitar. But the way you've broken it down, and then I've arranged it as a duet, the way you've broken it down is perfect because often what I'll do with a classical piece of music is exactly what you've done there. When you first look at it, you know, most classical music on ukulele is made up of a melody and then a couple of chords on the pulse beat. So if you're in 4/4, there tends to be a pulse on 1 and 3, and there tends to be a chord there. And I find the easiest way to break it down is to get people first off to play the melody, just the picking line. And someone else mentioned that, it might have been Susan, and then get them to play the chords and explain, you know, that's 2 parts, and then you're merging them together. I don't know, Anne, if you've got a copy of the first piece in classical uke, Mascarade. If you could share that, I could demonstrate it if you wanted. I don't know if you can put that on the screen or not, or if you, I don't want to take over. It was just a thought that it might work quite well to demonstrate how to do that, because that's a really good way to simplify something. Or if not,
do you have a copy? Because I'll have to take a picture.
Yeah, can you make me, because I can't share.
Oh, yeah. Let me make you. Okay, there you go. Yeah. You should be able to
just
share.
quickly go here. Bear with me 2 seconds.
So I'll just say a bit about this. This is the other book. Was this your first book? Classical.
Yeah, that's the first one. Yeah.
Yeah.
Here we go. If I go to Mascarade.
It's got 20 classical works. Yeah.
And again, let me just come back. Right, can people see that? If I zoom in a little bit. And again, if anybody wants a copy of this, I'll put my email up, drop me a line, and I'll happily send it. But effectively, can people see that okay? Lovely. So what I was saying here, I'll play the first line as it's written, all of it. Sorry. So this is it's a medieval piece that was originally written for lute, but when it comes to breaking it down, when it's not an overly complicated piece, but I know it's all relative. So the way I would break this down is exactly kind of the opposite of what Anne's done, really. I would first of all get the students, I'd explain the time, 3/4. I tend not to bother about sharps and that because we know we're reading tabs, so I don't get too bogged down in that. Initially, I would get them to pick the melody out. So there's a relatively simple melody. It's then thickened up on the pulse beat, the first beat, with 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. And you could actually play this as a duet. So once they've understood the melody and then realistically the pulse chord, you can then get them to start putting it together. And the nuance of it really is making it sound like one bit of music. As we all know, it's no good, for example, in that first bar, this is the beauty of sort of breaking it down, really. It's no good if you play the G chord and come off it to play the melody. What we don't want is, because you can see here the G chord is, well, in England, what we call a dotted minim. You're going to hate me for that. Dotted half note. So it's got to ring out for the 3. 1, 2, 3. And that's a great way of learning it, by teaching it, by getting to people to separate the melody and the chords. But like I say, if anybody wants a copy of that, let me know. I'll send it over. It's a fun little piece to teach and really sort of break down in an easy way. Let me just, if I stop sharing that. Sorry, Anne, I feel like
Yeah,
I've overtaken.
no problem. I'll email everyone after this meeting with everybody's email addresses so we could request. That's great. Yeah, that's right. Thanks. Thanks for that. Do you have anything, Paul, since you're on speaker view, to share with us besides that one? Maybe something you're working on?
Yeah, so I really don't want to take over this. I feel like I'm talking a bit too much, so feel free to shut me up. I've done my new book is, and it goes back to what you were saying at the beginning about a graded system. In England, we have a clear grading system where it goes from 1 through to 8. Grade 1 is for beginners, grade 5 is sort of intermediate, and grade 8 is advanced. And Colin Tribe's a great guy to chat to this about. And I've just done a new book, which is all modern pieces that I've written. So they're all finger picking pieces, but they're graded. So in effect, the first pieces are really, really simple and ideal for teaching. I'll play the first one because it's a very, very simple piece. Going through to grade 8 pieces, and they're going to be on the new syllabus. But whilst it's not a teaching book, it's ideal for teaching with. So this piece here, it's called Simple Things, and it just basically couples together a very simple arpeggio of A minor and F, and then a very simple melodic run. I'll play it. It's an easy piece. I won't bother with the repeats because I don't want to bore you too much. But I've got people, so I have about 45 students on a weekly basis, and students really at the beginning of their journey can pick up a piece like that, and the hope is that it illustrates that there's so much more to the ukulele than strumming chords. Nothing wrong with strumming chords. I love it. I think it's a massive part, but hopefully it can also push them towards understanding that there is more to it.
Thank you, Paul. Monica, you have a question.
Paul, I'm just wondering why you didn't put the letters of the chords, or was that a conscious decision, a choice? I tend to not use tabs, so I appreciate the melody written as notes for sure. But I know for me, I'd be looking at those chords and writing in that F or whatever it is. So I'm just wondering why you chose not to put those in there.
Yeah, thanks. That's a great question. I wanted them in, actually. The publisher wouldn't do it due to they used the word pagination. And I think they purposely used a big word to baffle me. I had to go and look it up. They just said it was too confusing. Likewise, I wanted the fingerings on. What fingers to use, and again they didn't like it. I mean, funny enough, in the other book, the school book, if I just look at this one, for example, I don't know if you can see that, but that one's got clearly chord diagrams in it. And I think because the other books are more, in inverted commas, classical based, they felt it cluttered it. But in many ways, I do agree. And I know Colin Tribe, when he does his, he always tries to put the chords above it, which I like. His publisher must be better than mine.
All right. Thank you, Paul. Any other questions before I move? Let's see, we got 2 newcomers that just came in. You missed the introduction part. We got Bruce Borham and also Lan Yarborough. We finished introducing ourselves. I don't know whether you were on video off or not. No, you were not on video off. Okay. We're now, oh gosh, we have about 35 minutes left. So we're talking about how to simplify and reduce. And I know Sheridan has something to share, and also Lan, you had written that you wanted to share too. So why don't I move to Sheridan first, then I'll come back to you. So Sheridan, yeah.
Thank you. So I have this is a song I'm actually going to play on one of your 3-chord things in the future. It's on Earth Day, I guess it is. It's a Jesse Winchester tune, and it's really just it's a simple C scale, 2 parts of a C scale. So I call it a 2.5 chord song because it only bumps to the 4 chord for half a measure at the end of each phrase. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna attach it to the chat, and let me get this. So there it is, and I'll play you the way I play it. I learned this on guitar, but it's the way I play it. I'll just play a little section of it. So, but all it is it's 2 parts of a C scale with a C and a G7th chord. And so basically on the score, it's too hard to do all that arpeggio for somebody to learn. So I just did the, and then,
Do you mind if I share that on screen?
Yeah, if you want, yeah. So you see, I didn't score tab it the way that I actually play it, but if you play that, you can actually play that C chord and play the melody against that C chord. So you can go. And then you can, on the G7th, you can play the rest of the melody against. And then I also play a little parallel part on. Whoops. So you can take this simple song and it's basically just 2 parts of the same scale. And so, basically, it's pretty easy to learn, and it's a good way for somebody to learn a simple C scale.
I like that. I'm collecting songs that have scales in them to kind of get my music theory students to listen and recognize ascending and descending scales, and also get the fingerstyle ukulele students to practice scales rigorously. So thanks for that. All right, so let's see. Let me just have Lan introduce yourself, because I know we've been corresponding and you wanted to share some simplification. I think you have to
unmute.
Yeah, there you go.
Unmute. Hi, this is Lan Yarborough. I'm from Ajijic, Jalisco, Mexico. I'm a refugee from the left coast. I used to live in Oakland, Alameda, and for the last 4.5 years, I've been living here in Mexico, up in the Central Highlands. There's a very active musical community here. It's a great retirement community for a lot of people, but it's also very close to Guadalajara, which is the 2nd largest city in Mexico. So it's a very vital area. Great weather. A lake, for those of you who are familiar with the West Coast, if you picture the entire San Francisco Bay minus the Delta, that's how big the lake is right outside my door. So we are super happy to be here. But I've got a lot of people here, and because a lot of my students and a lot of the uke players, there used to be 3 different uke clubs before the plague hit. A lot of the students here are of a certain age, and they don't have as much dexterity and as much desire to learn super tweaky things. They just want to play. They just want to enjoy playing. And as we all probably realize, the ukulele is a subtractive instrument. You can't play a major, minor, seventh, flattened fifth on 4 notes. So whether you like it or not, you're going to be leaving some of the notes out and trusting the brain, trusting the ear to fill them back in. So building on that, and again, a lot of our students are not interested in playing orchestral works. They're interested in playing. They're interested in playing songs they recognize, and more importantly, playing with friends. So we'll have two different things I'd like to comment. One is that the system we've come up with on simplifying song sheets, because a lot of books are based upon guitar scores. So you'll have complicated chords which are doable on a guitar, but virtually impossible on a ukulele, or they're built on piano score, which is even weirder, even harder. So we have to tell people is, okay, I got this great Billy Joel book. How can I play all these chords? And the answer is you really can't. But here's how you can play the songs and accompany yourself. So what we've done is to say that all these complex and jazz chords, all of them can be safely reduced, because I teach a course on on music theory, 2-session course, and we start with what's a note, what's a scale, what's a chord, and what's a key. And all of these can be reduced. And the way you do it is, if you're playing by yourself, you don't care. You're playing for yourself. If you're playing with a group and somebody else knows how to do the minor 7, as long as you play the minor, you're okay. So what we say is you can drop off the extras, and you always simplify from right to left. So that if you are playing and you hit, let's see, something odd, an F7th chord, and you're only a few weeks into playing, and you don't know how to play an F7, you play an F. And the 1, 3, 5 of the F will sound just fine with everybody else's 7th. They won't even notice you didn't play it. So 6s and 7th can be dropped off. Quickly, you will learn how easy 6ths are, and you'll learn the 7th chord. But until then, you don't worry about it. What about the slash chords? Slash chords can always be dropped off because they're of almost no use to a ukulele player. A guitar player and a piano player and a bass player, all that informs them, that gives them information they didn't have before. But for a ukulele player, just simply ignore them. They don't exist. 9th chords are the same as 7th chords, because they start off with the 1, 3, 5 flattened 7th, and then add the 9th. So rather than learn how to do 1, 5 flattened 7, 9, just go ahead and play the basic chord. It won't matter. And if you know the 7th chord, you can play the 7th chord, and that'll sound even better. But even if you just play the major chord, it doesn't matter. So the answer is you take off anything to the right, from right to left, including augmented, flattened 5ths, sharpened 7th, and everything else. Majors and minors have to be played. Unless, of course, you're playing a power chord, in which case you're not playing a 3rd, so who cares? And by the way, the last thing I end that little presentation on stripping it down is, no, an E7 is not the same as an E. You may not do that. What you do, they say, oh yeah, but an E is impossible to play. And that's when I say, let's get started on your bar chords. Bar a D, put the pinky 3 frets up, move up 2, there's an E7 for you. Or learn the conventional first position, but an E chord is a D, barred D, moved up 2. And this way you sort of sneak them into doing bar chords, and you sneak them into the idea that there's no key you can't play in. And if I could have just one more minute, that was the other thing. One of the things people keep coming in, and it's usually people who are also guitarists or violinists. I've got a few of those, violists or piano players or singers. It's always the singer. I can only play in C sharp. No, you can't. Yeah, Ann has had the experience, I can tell. There are natural keys for guitars. There are natural keys for ukulele. The natural keys for ukulele are in this order: C, G, D, F, and A. You got to keep A in because that's the key for blues. That is the natural blues key for ukulele. And the ukulele is a blues machine. And just for giggles, what I did was I took everybody's books. I said, everybody bring books in. I went through all of my own books, which is a library. I said, all my books, all the song books from clubs. And all I did was do a little stick figure count of which key they're in. And of all the books that are ukulele books intended for ukulele players, 33% of all the songs were C. No surprise. 30% were G. 12% were D. 9% are F, which is important because that's the key of nature. And 6% were an A for the blues guys. And if you add those first two together, if you learn only the keys of C and G, you can do 2/3 of all the songs in the book. If you learn the D key, then you got 75%. And so you should be happy. So the idea is I try to move students from the basic, rudimentary, just learning a few chords to move them to singing with groups. I bring them into the sing-alongs. I bring them into jams. I invite them to come to uke clubs. I said, listen if you're not comfortable, but when you get comfortable, play along and remember the simplification rules. I teach them simplification, then I invite them. And they find that they can play along all the time. And they're very happy, they're inspired, they're motivated, they want to continue on. And then later, we'll teach them all the fine points and the exotic chords, and they're able to keep going. And then I give them permission. If somebody desperately wants to play an E flat, I give them permission to bitch slap them and force them to either go up to an F or down to a D and live with it. You know, if you can't sing 1/2 step higher or 2 steps lower, you're not a singer. Stop calling yourself a singer. And so that works really well. And this is the realism. This is the most versatile, happy instrument, and yet it is a simple instrument. And if you get away from the simplicity, you're not thinking it through. None of us are ever going to be Jake Shimabukuro, but we can all be good stewards of the instrument and help the students stay comfortable, never feel out of place, and make them feel welcome at any group. So that's what I got. And if anybody would like this sheet, which is key realities for the ukulele, you see my name up there. You put a period between Lan and Yarborough, lan.yarborough@gmail. Then send me an email, ask for it, and I'll be happy to send this on to you. Because this is, in the words of Albert Einstein, equations should be made simple as possible, but no simpler. Well, this is as simple as you can make it for simplifying song sheets.
I wonder if you could load it into chat as a file the way Sheridan has. That way I could.
I'd like to, but I'm on a tablet that I use just for Zoom, and I don't have it on the tablet.
Okay, that's okay. No, that's
I
great.
can send it to you. But
Yeah, yeah. You
Can-
could send it to me. Then I could load it. So,
Okay. Dan, ping me. Send me a quick email, lan.yarborough@gmail.
okay. So Lan, I'm just thinking these rules of thumb are extremely important, for learners to remember that. But I always get the question, well, G7 is easier to play than G. Can I substitute with G7? I say, well, no, you could do it the other way around, but and then same thing, people say, well, D7, the easy D7 is easier than D. Just like the way they ask you, E7 is easier than E. Why can't I substitute? So I tell them, no, you can't. Sometimes you can, depending on what the next chord is, but then that's too much information.
Well, or if an E7 fits in the key of A. But if you're not playing an A, or if you're not playing blues, if you're playing blues, then the E7 will fit lots of places. But it has to fit the song, because remember, it's a subtractive instrument. You leave out notes. You don't add extra notes in that don't belong. And if you're playing in a place where you need a straight major, adding a seventh just makes it wrong.
That's
So
right.
yeah, and in the way I teach, I have lots of little rules of thumb. In fact, I will let you know if I do it. But I'm getting up a temporary tattoo for my music theory class, which will talk about the 7 notes in the chord, the spacing of the notes, the three notes that form the major and minor scale. And I'm going to have that done as a temporary tattoo so they can play and look at their arm like that as they go.
You're going to give them all a temporary tattoo? Is that what you're saying? Wow.
Well, a temporary tattoo for those who are squeamish about getting the real ones. I have a lady correspondent in England who has tattoos on both of her forearms. On one side, she's got the scales on the fretboard, and on the other arm, she's got the circle of fifths. I think that's a little extreme, but it's her arms, so let her go.
Wow, I thought that was bad to have it on the back of T-shirts, so you just sit behind somebody, and then you see
There's a nice idea. Or put it upside down on your own stomach, so you can look down.
I just wanted to share an anecdote, if I could.
Yes.
At my Rebellion Jam tonight. I'm leading a song called "Both Sides Now," which was written by Joni Mitchell, and the key that I found it in online is A. It turns out that she wrote it in the key of F sharp. And I'm not going to debate the point over whether she could have sung it in either F or G. She's a better singer than I am. But I transposed it from F sharp to G for the sole purpose of not having to ask intermediate and beginner players to play in the key of F sharp. And I can sing it a half step higher. But G. I imagine that Joni Mitchell picked F sharp for a reason.
And she likely used a capo to get it to F sharp.
Yeah, she did. She had a guitar that was tuned to E. It was a very strange tuning. It had like lots of E's in it, and the open chord was an E. And so she capoed it at the second fret to make it F sharp.
And of course, just from the chords you have to make on the ukulele, take that F sharp down five semitones and see what she was playing, not what she's singing. So
Right.
always go to C, G, D, F, or A, period.
Yeah, but I think you bring up an interesting point about the tension between a key that a singer wants to sing in and keys that are more accessible for ukulele players. I had somebody send me a song in the key of E flat, and they wanted to play it. They wanted to lead it, and I basically said to her, if you lead this song, it'll be an open mic because nobody is playing in E flat. And I don't care about your voice. I care about the fingerings that people have to make. And so we disposed of the song, but it would have been easy enough to play it in the key of F,
or
to play it in the key of D.
play it in D.
Yeah.
Yeah, a local leader of one of the open mics says that every time a singer says, "I want it in E flat," you'll say, "E flat, you got it." He turns around and says, "Everybody, D," and they play it in D, and the singer never figures it out. They just hear the instrumentalist playing in D, and they just adapt. It works.
I will say this, though. One of the things I learned in my Hawaiian music class, I had a teacher who promised he could teach us to play a song in all 13 keys. And I think there were 13. Anyway, in every key. And the way he did it was he would point at, he'd say, "This is your capo. Now you take the C shapes. You're playing a song in C. You just capo the first fret, and now you're in C sharp. And you play the same shapes, except you're in C sharp. You move it up one more, you're in D. Play the same shapes." So there are ways, and that was the most valuable thing I learned when I was new to ukulele, was that you can go up the fretboard, and instead of figuring out how to make an E flat, just go up, capo up enough with your finger that you can use C shapes or D shapes or A shapes or F shapes.
As a singer who's trying to play the ukulele, I have to confirm that absolutely going down half a tone like that is fantastic. I mean, you hardly notice it, and you're very happy to sing in a very comfortable key. Absolutely. Sorry, don't want to interrupt.
Hey, Mark, can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Did they teach you why the Hawaiians love the key of F?
I think I used to know that.
It's because it is scientifically proven to be the key of nature. Animals prefer the key of F. There is an orchestra, a harmonica orchestra in Thailand, that only plays in the key of F. They play harmonicas, and they went to this elephant preserve and left a table full of harmonicas, and the elephants, being very intelligent, would pick up the harmonicas with the tip of their nose, with the tip of their trunk, and blow in them. And they discovered that the elephants preferred the Fs. They would go past all the other ones until they found an F. And that's been shown over and over, that F, there's some vibration, harmonic in nature, that is in the key of F. So we got to keep that one in too.
That's interesting. Because certainly for complete beginners, the F and the C chords are the easiest to play for any 2-chord songs. Yeah, so we do F and C or F and C7. And but I've never heard of that it's like the natural key. That's interesting.
Rhythm of the universe, or the harmony of the universe.
Yeah. All right, Dan. Yeah, thanks.
I've been racking my brain all morning about what could I add to simplifying things, because my life is always going the other direction. But I'm working with young children, and also something Paul mentioned triggered a memory. Rather than playing chords to start off with, I get them actually just playing. If it says C chord, just play a C, and you've got a C, you've got a G, you've got an A, and if you have one finger on the E string, you've got an F, and there's your first 4,000 songs taken care of. And then if there's an E minor, well, you've got the E, just take a finger off there. So you actually can have kids playing along, and they're learning the fretboard piece by piece, and that instant gratification of, I'm not quite sure about how to play. Well, I can play a C chord, but that F's a bit tricky. Oh, okay. There you go. You're playing F. Well done. And that gets the hook in, and they go, well, I'm an expert. I'm fantastic. I'm ready to put another 30 seconds in and learn the next piece of information to do the next goal. So I have prep kids playing something. What is it? Shotgun. I'll be riding shotgun underneath the I mean, that was all over the radio. That was in their heads, and they're going da, 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 I'm a big rock star, and they're strutting out of the classroom, absolute rock gods, thinking, well, this is music. I can do that. I'm ready to keep on going. So certainly simplifying it to single notes. You can play multiple chord songs, but just play it note at a time, and then build from there. If you're going, well, okay, you can play the note for that one, but if you happen to know the F major chord, well, you can do some chord strumming there as well, and just make it more fancy. And they're going, yeah, more fancy. We want to go more fancy. Yeah, that's us. So that's a definite way of simplifying things for beginning or young players. And just something Lan said, I just popped into the chat box, an E major chord, another variation. I find the bar chord up there, quite often that doesn't fit. Like the chords are all down here and suddenly you jump up here to that and then back again. I find that a little bit jarring. And I agree, E7 is not E major. No one should ever say that. However, if you get the E7 chord shape and press your first and third fingers down, but only mute, rest your second finger on the C string and take it out of the equation, congratulations, you are playing an E major chord. Press it down, there's your E7, take it off, there's your E major, because you've got the, well, it's in the thing. So a lot of, I mean, it is, you're pressing two fingers down and resting the one in the middle. So it is still a rub your tummy, pat your head sort of situation. But a lot of people find that a much easier skill to learn than getting first. Well, I've never met anyone actually who can naturally do first position E major. I've yet to meet one. I have bendy fingers that can bend that way, so I can play the second position E major easily enough. But the E7 variation, it's suddenly you're playing E major. No longer you're going, oh, it's got E major in it. What's on the next page of the songbook? Let's try that instead. So it gets people playing E major.
I like that. I know that we were at a virtual ukulele festival. I think it was July last year, Dan, and you gave a short. Yeah, you taught people how to play different kinds of E's. Yeah, that's always one of the most asked questions, the formidable E. And I like your E. That's really good. Yes, so thank you all. And Lan, I would love to get hold of your sheet. It's Lan.
Okay.
Yarborough@gmail.com. I should have your email address anyway. So that'll be great. And Lindsay Higgs also said if anybody wants a copy of the syllabus or the book, the NBE one, then he's happy to email it to you. So I'll give you his email address as well. I'm just wondering for April, is this a good time? Because if this is a good time, then we could always fix it every sort of third Saturday at this time. Yeah, then I could schedule everything further in advance rather than just the month before. Do we have any topics we want to talk about? And by the way, did everybody share already your reductionism, your simplification? Yeah. Any topic you want to share or talk about? So, well, one of the things I want to say is I started to give out what I call diagnostic tests as homework because I teach a youth ukulele class, so basically age 10 to about 14. And in Zoom, it's not easy, but they're very well behaved, so much that I have to ask them to please unmute and play. Otherwise, they wouldn't, And to test their understanding, I make them complete a Google form. Yeah, and that's their homework. So I'll ask them questions how do you play this? In order to switch from C to E minor constantly, what strategies do you have? You slide your index finger down, or you move your middle finger over, to do the E minor, or what else do you do? And for my music theory class, I also do a weekly diagnostic. So my question is, how do you double check that your students really get it? Because oftentimes we don't find out until too late that they've misunderstood it altogether, or they developed a bad habit, which is difficult to correct. Yeah. Monica?
My
It's hard.
students are very mouthy. They'll tell me in a heartbeat.
Okay.
I can't do a B flat. How do I do it? My fingers won't do it.
Well, now if you have well-behaved people who don't tell you. All right, Monica, what were you about to say, Monica?
It's hard to test by Zoom. It's hard to do anything, assessment wise, or to really check in. I think that if I were to have an ongoing Zoom class, I think it would be worth taking a 10-minute block with each student individually, just to connect with them, give them some tasks so you can just see one-on-one what they're doing. The Google form is good, but you really needs to have a practical exam, right? Or a practical moment to play.
Well, that's interesting, because I found that talk about the ideal class size. When I have a small group, like 3 or 4, we're all comfortable playing in turn for each other. But the minute it gets to a size, say about 10 or anything over 10, suddenly becomes very daunting. And I've had remarks in private saying, don't ask me to play in front of everybody, please. Please don't ask me to do that. Or the opposite, which is, I didn't pay to hear other people play. I pay to hear you teach us. So for me, it's like, how can I tell whether they know it or not? I started doing class feedback forms after each class. Like, at what point were you most engaged? At which point did you feel confused or lost? And what moment did you feel surprised? Things like that. But not everybody fills it out. So, yeah, I don't want to discover too late. Yeah, Dan. Yes.
I was going to suggest, depending on how much extra time you want to put in, apps like Flipgrid are fantastic. They're ready-made recording apps that you can set up a classroom as the teacher, and then your students can record themselves like 30 seconds of their homework or whatever it is, or a skill. And the thing is, if they muck it up the first time, I won't send that. They could take 10 takes, and then they send you their good copy, the one they're happy with. And then over the course of the week, you can check in and go, oh yeah, they've got it. That's not, yeah, that's going to end up a bad habit. So you can make sure that they record themselves with the camera looking at their fingers, and they're not doing it in front of everyone else. It's just you. But again, you might have a life and not want to spend twice as much time. So, but that is one way around I don't want to play in front of other people, which is a legitimate response from many people.
Yes, it's not easy, is it? All right. Does anybody else want to chime on anything before we end? No?
You asked for suggestions for a future topic.
Yes.
This may be too small, but you mentioned chord transitions. I think there's a lot to chord transitions, that there's some rules that some I've read and some I've made up on how to pre-plan. Always think one chord ahead, because which shape you're using might depend upon the next chord or the chord after that. That might be worth talking about. And also, I've got 3 steps toward playing bar chords. Sneak them into doing bar chords when they don't know they're doing them. So like the D, bar D with the pinky down, or the A and move it up 1 to make a B flat. So I've got the little steps, but then, at the end of the thing, I had a very experienced player who complained, I won't say whined or whinged, but that she could not, despite being herself a teacher, really wasn't comfortable doing bar chords. She said she had short fingers and weak hands, and she had 2 problems that she wanted me to solve. One is how to make all 4 notes ring, and 2, how to go way up the neck and find the right chord. She needed a roadmap on how to do it. And I'd never thought about it. So I sat down and came up with a 4-session class on way too much information on bar chords, plus handouts and imagery and so forth. But maybe bar chords, which is the key to getting better. You can't get better without bar chords. Maybe we would like to talk about that in some future session.
Actually, I would, because I wrote a sort of a white paper on movable chord shapes and bar chords, and probably just 1 or 2 of my students bothered to read it. It's probably, way too academic, but I'd be very interested in Lan, in your approach, because to me, I feel, I say there are 3 rites of passage, okay? In a beginning class, once they hit the G or the G7, that's the first rite of passage. They move on to, it opens a whole new world of chords. But the second rite of passage is the B flat chord, yeah? Because that's the first bar chord, so to speak. And then it opens up another world. The third one is the E chord. And for them to be able to get to the E chord, it's a long way. Just like from G7 to B flat, it's a long way. But once they hit E, the real E chord, the barred E chord, it's like they should be fearless. It's wide open. But then to get them to understand the concept of movable shapes, maybe it has to do with the visual presentation, the way I show it. But to me, it's just think of the 0th fret as, you have to remember the open string is a 0th fret. If you get rid of the nut, you need to cover the 0th fret and reshape your fingering. It's not reshape, but refinger your chord to be able to do that. But it's not obvious for some reason. Some of it could be sort of, self-defeating, kind of telling yourself, I just can't do it. I can't make my hands do that. It sounds horrible, So I don't know. Maybe it's psychological, or it just takes a while before you could get to these rites of passage.
I agree.
Make sure you put that on the agenda, because there are a lot of different ideas that we might be able to share. It'll make that easier.
Should we do that for the next one then? Barred chords and movable chord shapes.
Yeah, I'd be up for that. One of the things that I like to show people is, I think you're right. It's like B flat is kind of, to me, that's kind of the whole neck opening chord. And, it's like a lot of people who can't make it, I just say, lay your fingers in your palm against your thumb like this. I guess you can't really see that very well. But, that just lays right on the keyboard for me. And it also makes it, But one of the things I like to use that chord, that's the only chord on ukulele that I know of that is a perfect 1-octave arpeggio. It's 1, 3, 5, 1. And if once people know that, they can add the pinky transforms that into 1, 3, 6, 1, 1, 3, flat 7, 1, 1, 3, 5, 9. And I mean, you got a whole bunch of chords without moving anything but your pinky. And in fact, there's a great tune that I learned that I discovered it's in E minor, and I play a closed E minor, and then it goes to a C7th, which I'm using that B flat 7th shape, and then it wants an A minor, but a C6 is an A minor. You drop the pinky, and then you slide the whole thing, the rest of the fingers down to a B7th, and you're back home to E minor, and so you're playing the whole song. So this compadres in the old Sierra Madre, you can play in 2 frets, and all you have to do is, if you've learned the B flat, you can play all the other chords around it.
So how about on that note, we have something to look forward to? Yeah, let's say the next one will be Saturday. Looks like it's going to be the 17th of April. Is that all right? Also 5 o'clock. Eastern Daylight Time, which unfortunately for Paul Mansell and also for Greta is going to be 10 o'clock at night for you. Yeah. And I don't know what time it is in Australia. I don't know who follows daylight savings. Yeah, Monica?
I just have a question. Like Sheridan, if you would be presenting that song, could you email that to Anne? And also Lan, if you've got, your...
I can put it up right now, I think.
Just so that, we could maybe print it off and have a copy as you're talking about it. That would be helpful.
How do you... Well, actually, probably the best way to do it would be... is to do the email through Anne, because I can actually send it to her. And I can send my chord. One of the things that's great that I was talking about, this little OnSong app, is you can actually make your own chord tab shapes to put for people to play. So if you're playing an alternate shape, you can put that shape on there. So anyway, I'll do that. I'd be happy to share that. It's a great song.
Yeah, that's great. And before we go, I just, in front of everybody, I want to ask Paul, I'm starting this new classical ukulele course where I'm starting with a Renaissance piece. And Tony Mizen has allowed me to use his bear dance from his from lute to uke. But I want to go, from Renaissance to Baroque to classical to romantic and to neoclassical to modern contemporary, all under the umbrella of quote unquote classical music, as in anything that's not pop or rock or blues or whatever. Do you have a piece I could use?
Yeah, of course I do. Yeah, you could. Funnily enough, you could go one prior to Baroque, couldn't you? You could go medieval and use Mascarade. Yeah, we're welcome to use that. So you could go one before Baroque. But yeah, if you want something, things from the Romantic period are always really nice, aren't they? I've got. What is it? Relatively basic level?
Well, actually, this is my most advanced group, but I do have some beginners moving in who just learned how to pluck and read tabs. So, I want to give them all the different things. I basically want to get them hooked. Wasn't there something called
lovely
hooked
new
on
ukulele
classics?
arrangements that'd work.
Yeah, hooked on classics. That's it. Yeah.
I'll send you a couple then they're from a new book that's not out till fall. So, but they're done. I'll send you a couple of lovely ukulele pieces.
All right, great. Well,
what period is 1503?
Is that medieval? I guess I don't know. You're testing my knowledge. I would go down that's medieval, but someone might want to correct me on that.
That's my oldest song. It's William Dunbar, Welcome to Scotland.
Oh.
Yeah, that is early.
Well, on that note, I want to thank everyone for joining me today in Zoom on a Saturday afternoon. And thank you for giving up 90 minutes of your time. And this is on YouTube Live. So you're being streamed all over the world. And it's also on Facebook. And we'll see each other April 17th, Saturday, 5 o'clock Eastern Daylight Time or 10 o'clock British Standard Time.
Yeah.
And whatever
Thank
time
you.
in Australia. Okay. All right.
Thank you, Anne.
Thank you,
Stay safe,
everybody.
everybody.
Nice meeting you, Lan, and
Thank you.
Bruce and Greta. Nice seeing you. All right. Bye-bye. The end tune. Yeah, Sheridan, that's good. We should always have an end goodbye tune.
Thank you again, Sheridan, for your bien rose.
Thank you.
Beautiful. Lan, I want to say I went to Mexico several times.